how you want to do this, Michael? You want to go through, you share your screen and then go through the Discord page? Go through the Reddit page?
Well, I think most interesting would be how I got to where I am with Ryzen, and because that explains a lot of general stuff, right? To put it in. So I'd had Intel from 88088, which the OG IBM PC CPU, to Haswell 4790K, and I had the 4790K for 5 years. It was running 24/7, 4.4 gigahertz, not a problem. But it was starting to get, long in the tooth. And I was looking for a replacement, and Intel just wasn't giving me any, because they have to update the CPU, update the motherboard. I get a new motherboard, get new RAM. No, just you've got to give me something to incentivize me. And AMD came out with the Zen 1 and Zen Plus, the 1000 and 2000 generation. But the problem with that was I had deja vu, flashbacks back to the Athlon 64, where again, AMD had the better CPU, but the motherboards were rubbish. And this was the same with the X370. Across the board, they were garbage. They were not compatible. They were compatible, but there's an old techie saying, just because they're compatible doesn't mean it will work. And so then I saw this, Zen 2. I thought, interesting. And then we're going to go to, 16 core, 32 thread. I thought, interesting. And we're bringing out the X570. Interesting. Because with the Zen Plus, one of the things they brought out was the X470 boards, which were actually, a few of them were pretty good. Now, they weren't bringing out the X570 and the 3950X until the end of the year, end of 2019. But I thought, you know what? Shut up. Take my money. So I decided to get the X470 and the 3600X. Which, this is interesting. Everybody advised against getting the 3600X because you didn't get all that much more performance. Get the 3600, which was unlocked, and you could, clock it up. You could overclock it. Now, these influencers, the YouTubers, they've got so much influence that people were buying the 3600, and the price for that went up. And it was more expensive than the 3600X. Nobody was buying the 3600X, right? So if something's not being bought, the price goes down. So I got the 3600X, and this was shortly after launch, right? This was like maybe a week after launch. I was doing my due diligence on what motherboard to get and what RAM to get, because it's my money. Nobody funds me. I don't ask for any money from people that I help and all the rest. You know that. So I have to pinch my pennies. I'm not exactly a wealthy person. I'm not exactly, missing meals, but I'm not what you would call independently wealthy. I don't have sugar daddy patrons that entertain me. Dancing monkey. So okay, so I got the Gigabyte X470 gaming 7 Wi-Fi motherboard. But I got, what RAM does it get? Yeah, I got, was it Team Group? Yeah, I got Team Group RAM. Was it Team Group? Yeah, I think it was Team Group RAM. And
Strong brand.
I got yeah, and obviously I got the 3600X. Now, I got that, put it all together, it worked. Okay, first hurdle, passed the first hurdle, but then it just wasn't, yeah, it didn't feel right. Is the best way I could. This could be better. And I'm looking around like a madman, you know, I'm reading online, both in German and in English, you know, and nothing, really nothing. And like for quite some time, I was trying to configure Ryzen like it was, you know, an Intel CPU, and it obviously wasn't. And then I started casting about, and I'd use XTU with, you know, Intel's XTU, Extreme Tuning Utility, with my Haswell, and I thought, oh, Ryzen Master. Let me see. Let's try this instead of, you know, configuring the BIOS. So I learned my lesson with Ryzen Master. You don't configure RAM in Ryzen Master. Don't. Doesn't work that well. But the CPU stuff, hey, I can fuck about with this. I can mess about with this. Excellent. So I started experimenting with it. A lot of fail starts. Obviously, I didn't know what I was doing, so you go down rabbit holes. But the thing is, the way to get back out the rabbit hole again is not to be afraid to just do a clear CMOS. Start from fresh. You know, don't compound. No, don't pile one error onto the next. Because even when you get the original problem solved, you've still got all the other errors that you managed to introduce because it seemed like a good idea at the time. And so eventually it was weird because I was overthinking it, and I was listening to YouTubers in the tech media, and I thought, hang on. And then, you know, I was getting to the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. And to keep it simple and stupid, what I hit on is exactly what I'm doing with the 9800X3D. I set a maximum voltage, right? So it can vary up to that maximum voltage, not a problem. And all I do is I see what clock speed I can get out of that voltage. And no rocket science. Set a limit, and I know it's voltage that kills the CPU. You go above 1.3 on the 7nm TSMC, and it's TSMC that says it's not me, right? But I can also double check that because I can vary the voltage. I can say, right, let's see 1.25. How much clock speed can I get out of that? And then, weird enough, at 1.3 volts, the jump, 25 megahertz jump to 1.3 volts, is far less voltage than if I want to go the next 25 megahertz above that. That's a biggie. That, you know, all core I'm talking about, not single core. Not interested in single core. Especially not for gaming. It's multi-core now. Single core performance, that's a thing for like 10 years ago. Single core, 10 years ago, you could make an argument for single core performance. Or for a lot longer if you were an Intel fanboy living off copium. Single core performance is important. Yeah, until they show games and it's like, multi-core, multi-thread. Yeah, I'll give you, there's a wall thread, right? And then you've got basically support threads, but it's still multi-threaded. And with Ryzen, the boost is only valid for the single core. As soon as you've got more cores engaged, and I've showed you that, you can't. In fact, I can share my screen and actually show that.
That'd be good.
Just a second. Because, like I say, I've done the experiments. I've done the experiments with different CPUs, so it's not always going to be consistently the same CPU. So yeah, so screen 2 is blank.
I can see water.
Yeah, it's called Prairie. I've had that background since Windows 98. I just like it. It's just relaxing, and it's my kind of thing. So you can see here I've got I think I did this experiment with a 9950X, and it was cores and clock speeds. And if I go to a single core, and as you can see here, maximum CPU speed 5700, and I'm getting the maximum clock speed 5700. Yeah.
Single core.
And this was at stock. So at stock, 1.354 volts. You see that up the top there?
Wowies.
Yeah. Obviously, this was a different. Yeah, this is the same motherboard that you had, but it's a far earlier BIOS as well. So yeah. Now, if we go to 2 cores, this is where the 9950X was actually more better behaved than, like, say, like the 7950X or something like that, because the drop-off wasn't quite as severe. But as you can see, 2 cores, you're not getting 2 times 5.7. It's going down to, you've lost like 50 megahertz. Yeah. And per core. Now, if we go to 3 cores, you can again see 3 cores. It's gone down again by about 50 megahertz per core. Okay, so you're at 5.9 now, and you'll notice all the while as we increase the voltage, as we increase the number of cores, the voltage goes down. So we're going from 1.354 to 1.311, and at 3 cores, we're now at 1.303. Okay, so in that way, that motherboard, the X670 Aorus Elite AX, was, not bad. It didn't try to. It did the proper droop.
Yeah.
Not that I ever wanted to run it like this, but again, you see and here, this is the anomaly. Here it goes back up to 1.339 again. Okay, but the clock speed with 4 has gone down again. So yeah, that shot that, and of course the temp has gone up.
Load balance important. Yeah.
Then it did 5 cores, same difference. It shows you, like, you're not going to get single core, any kind of, you're never going to hit the single core max when there's more cores engaged. So you're not going to have one core that'll be able to clock up. So 2 cores that'll be able to clock up to the max. This is running Cinebench, obviously, because I'm putting on this. I want to see CPU load, how much it would lose, and the 9950X lost less than any other, because it used to be like 7950X. It would do it single core, and then it would have a radical drop when you went to 2 cores. And here it actually managed to keep the clock. So I was impressed. And this decided me to try to use PBO on the 9950X, but to get that voltage from 1.33 down below 1.2, which I did, but it took me about 1,000 hours of work with it to eventually get there. Was the juice worth the squeeze? Not really, but I'm willing to experiment.
Mm.
And I've always been willing to experiment. I'm open to new. It's like I say, if somebody can show me a better way to do something, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm not wedded to any idea that I've got just because it's my idea. Like, you show me a better way to do it, okay. But I want people to show me a better way to do it. Not, this sucks. Go kill yourself. What?
We should be learning from one another, not
Yeah,
penalizing
because
each other.
Well, the thing is, it's an old techie saying, if we techies don't hang together, we'll certainly be hung separately. And there's such a big area. So like I said, I think I've told you this before. So when somebody asks me how much I think I know about computers, a noob, because you've got encyclopedic knowledge. No, not really. I really don't. But I said, well, how much do you think you know? And well, I like, stretch your arms out, as far as you can from your body, right? And now, with your right hand, bring your thumb and your forefinger as close together as you can, right, without touching. And now, look at the space between your thumb and your forefinger, right? And now compare that space between your thumb and the forefinger to the span of your arms. And that's how much I think I know compared to how much there is out there to know. And I'm giving myself a lot of credit with that analogy, okay? And all of us, and that's the great thing about computers, all of us, we got that little bit where we just got an affinity for it. Some people it's RAM, some people it's graphic cards. Some people it's network communication. Some people it's programming. I also had a knack for database programming. I like that for some reason. Other people don't, and I could get my head around it. I looked at database programming more like heuristic programming as opposed to axiomatic programming, where I stuck. Like, forget about it. I learned my limitations back in days of Turbo Pascal under DOS, and yeah, no, just no. That would be a complete no. And so it was also when I was invited to a party because I'd helped one of the biggest pawn producers in Germany get their network up and running, the server and client up and running. And I also rewrote the database for her because she was getting screwed, pardon the pun, by this guy who'd run who created a database, but this database basically had a self-destruct switch that if she didn't pay every 3 months, the database would destroy itself, like quite literally.
Oh, wow.
It would stop working. And luckily, I knew how to get the data out of that database because it wrote it into temp files, and those temp files I could conveniently load into a new database program, which I wrote for her. And she went around, she took me around, well, she invited me to a party. My wife didn't want to go because, like, I said, okay, well, you know, I'm going. Okay, you can sit here at home and think about what I'm doing at a pawn producer's party. And well, she wasn't going to. I couldn't bait her into doing it. I thought that would be my gambit, where, you know, okay, she'll, you know, no, she was determined. All right, fair enough. But anyway, this woman took me around the people, and she introduced me as her computer expert. And then I had to explain to people, expert, it's giving me a bit, maybe too much credit. You know, I'll never be an expert, because as soon as I think I know what I'm doing, they go and change everything. It's like, eh. So, it's a permanent scholar is the most I can ever aspire to. And I think if you manage to achieve the status of permanent scholar, you've really come a long way. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But expert, nah, not really, because like I say, the area is so big and there's so many changes and you have to keep up. I mean, there's no point in me, you come to me with a problem, there's no point in me telling you, oh, this is how I sorted it in Windows NT4. Yeah, I don't use Windows NT4, I use Windows 11. Yeah, but if you had used Windows NT4, this is how you would have sorted it, you know, and it's not going to do you much good. And so, like, you know, where you come from is not where you're going. Put it that way. In terms of computers, and so you have to literally be willing to say everything I knew is bollocks. And I say to people, noobs, when I talk to noobs, I say, look, you never. I've been doing this for over 40 years, right? But you're never more than 2 years behind me. If you start now, right, you will have caught up to me in 2 years, because obviously you'll be learning. Your learning curve will be a lot faster than mine. So, like, in 2 years' time, you know, you've caught up 40 years.
Yeah, I can
If
see
that's
that.
what if that's what your aim is, you know, from starting from zero, right? And the other thing is, when I started from zero, and I had the 8088, I was incredibly lucky that there were people that would take the time out to help a noob like me. And you got to remember, I was such a noob. First of all, there was no internet, obviously, no internet in those days. But there was kind of, like, you know, computer magazines and all the rest of it. But the thing was, I could understand the words, but I couldn't, you know, I could read the words, but I couldn't understand the concepts. And it's, remember, I sent you that link to the jargon file?
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
Yeah.
and it defines those words. There was no definitions. There was no, jargon file didn't come out until way later. So I didn't have anywhere to look up these words. And it's like, what does this mean? And, but I can read the words, you know, like, but what does that word actually mean? And I was lucky enough that I met people who were patient enough to explain it to a noob like me. And at some point, I made the crossover where it goes click, and I go, all right, I understand now. Not that I can do everything, but I'm actually starting to understand the words. You know, not just be able to read them, but understand them. Because I built up enough of a frame of reference where I could slot those words into to actually make sense. Because you need for something to make sense, you need to have a context. And those people were patient enough to help me, and they're dead. Right? I've lost contact with them. They're either dead. I've lost contact with them. Don't know. I hope they're doing well. But I can't pay them back.
Mm.
But what I can do is I can pay it forward, which is why I remember how it felt for me to be helped, and so I'll try to help people just as payback, because for those people that try to help me, not only tried but succeeded in helping me. So that's why I do what I do. That's why I enjoy doing what I do, as well. Well, that's not why I enjoy it. I mean, I enjoy it on its own, but what motivates me to help other people, and of course, I don't charge money for it, because like that wouldn't be paying back. That would be basically, how would I say it? It would feel a bit like abusing them, those people that helped me, because they did it in good faith and helped me and didn't charge me money for it. And
Yeah.
back then, computer courses cost a hell of a lot, right? A hell of a lot more than now. And so obviously, I was a student. I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford that. Could barely afford the first computer I ever got.
Mm.
And which was a very, 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 very basic computer. And quite literally for about 10 years, my grades were dumpster diving. I'm not joking you, literally dumpster diving, finding out where people were chucking out stuff.
Wow.
And rescuing bits that might improve, I had a Franken build of a 286 at the end of the day. It was weird. But I enjoyed it. And but all of that wealth of knowledge, worthless.
Mm.
Back in the day, you would upgrade, you would not upgrade, but you would overclock with the 8080. You overclocked with a soldering iron. Yeah. Couldn't do that nowadays, right?
Yeah, I think
Without
prior.
specialized equipment.
Mm, I think prior we used to bypass the power limit on the GPUs with a pencil, the lead pencil.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we have Michael Nager here. I'm hopefully pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah. Naga. Yeah. Well, the name is nom de plume, and the name actually comes from. Well, put it this way: I like my name, but I hate every diminutive of it. So I decided I wanted to give myself a different name. And I wanted something that was light-hearted, right? It was a piss take, but it would sound legit. So I started off with Mickey Mouse, and I worked backwards. And Mickey became Michael. That's obvious. And then Nager is the German word for a rodent, and a mouse is a kind of rodent. So mouse became Nager, and Michael Nager was born. And I've had that name now for 25 years, something like that. And I've got to the stage where I'm more comfortable with that name than I am with my actual given name, which is really weird.
Wow.
And as for my background, I was born in Glasgow, in Scotland, 1959. So the more astute of the people listening can see that I'm approaching 21 from the way in the wrong direction. And then my father in 1960 had a massive heart attack, and this wasn't long after the Second World War. My father, a Scotsman, having married a German, you know, my mum was German. My father's loving family said, we're not going to take care of, you know, because my mum had to go out and work because like the social net wasn't as robust back in the day. And so my mum had to go out and work and take care of like an infant. And my father's loving relative said, well, we're not taking care of a Nazi bitch's offspring. You know, and that was the kindest way of putting it. So my mum got in contact with her parents, and they said, yeah, sure, we'll take care of him. And so I was literally put in a basket, one of these Easter baskets kind of thing, and I was handed to a stewardess from BEA, and BEA flew in BEA to, cause obviously I don't remember it, but you know, like it's been described to me, and to London, and then that stewardess gave me to another stewardess from BOAC, British Overseas Airline Company or Corporation, and they landed in Cologne, and then that stewardess, and I remember my grandfather and my grandmother, like they, you know, she would not part with that basket until they proved who they were. You know, it was like really uncomfortable. And my grandfather and grandmother hadn't thought about that. You know, like, how do we prove who we are? You know, it's like, and she was adamant. You know, so it ended up that my grandfather called up his son, my uncle Dieter, who had to rummage in the desk to get some ID for my grandfather didn't even have his driver's license with him. Although by law you meant to have always in German law you always fuck that. Details, you know, like new. Yeah. My grandfather was a big influence on me, so I was over in Germany until I was like about five years old, and then I had to go back to Glasgow, Scotland again, and I couldn't speak a word of English, so I grew up bilingual, and it's actually stood me in good stead, over the years. But yeah, so like I've never been steeped in one kind of thing. It's like German, Scottish, Intel, AMD, AMD, NVIDIA. I'm not closed. I don't have closed off borders, per se. So yeah, that's basically my where I came from. I'm now 66 years old, and I'm sort of like living the dream. I decided long ago that I was going to go from puberty to senility without growing up in the meantime. I'm winning. I'm succeeding. I guess. I'm beating the odds on that one. I think. I hope. I don't know. Anybody else listening to this, you'll need to decide for yourself. But I think I'm doing not too badly.
Very good, very good. And you've made yourself a Reddit post regarding the 9800 X3D.
It's like it's like looking for this. It's like somebody asking you for your phone number. I always forget. It's like, how often do I call myself? What? Why would I want to know my own phone number? It's like, how often do I call myself? It's like, yeah, but you do want to know your phone number to give it to someone else so they can call you.
You just make it full screen, Michael. Just maybe make it a bit bigger.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm capturing on my screen to capture your screen. Okay. Here we are.
Yeah. So I decided to approach this like when I write a guide or I write anything, I always like to have a beginning, a middle, and then an end. Okay. And I am really annoyed by tech media YouTubers who say, "Oh, 9800X3D, PBO and curve optimizer." You're limited on the 9800X3D to 5.225 gigahertz. You are not going to get beyond that. No amount of PBO and a curve optimizer is going to get you beyond that limit. Now, in PBO, there is the possibility of adding up to 200 megahertz. Yeah, but that is speculative. That isn't. Yeah, you're going to get 5.425. It will say 5.425. You won't be getting 5.425. Right? The amount of extra megahertz you get is dependent on the load, what kind of load it is, how hot your CPU is. And so let's on my 9800X3D with PBO and the curve optimizer -30 and plus 200 megahertz. With my cooling, I've got one of the best coolers, best low cost cooler. Well, best cooler for best AIO for Ryzen. There's better coolers, if you want to make it yourself custom. But I've got the Arctic Liquid Freezer 3. It's, let's say, for Ryzen, it's the best. It sucks for Intel. So anybody listening to this, you got Intel, do not buy this cooler. It sucks for Intel. But it's the best, especially the Pro version, which has got upgraded fans for the same price as the previous version of the cooler. It is bar none, I think, the best AIO performance-wise for Ryzen. But even with that, I can only get with Cinebench from going from 5.225 maximum clock speed per core under a full core load to 5.275, maybe 5.28. Okay, so I'm not getting anywhere near 5.425. Is what I'm saying. It's like under a full core load Cinebench. And I like Cinebench. Some people call it my favorite pay to win game. Simply because it only really benchmarks the CPU. So whatever changes you make to your RAM, whatever RAM you've got, if you've got better RAM than me or worse RAM than me, it's not going to vary the Cinebench result that you get by much. In fact, I did the experiment where I ran CPU at stock and kept it at stock, and then I just went through the stages of configuring my RAM. And from the stock CPU with RAM at JDEC, I basically after a clear CMOS, to still CPU at stock, to the RAM configured to the maximum extent. With Cinebench R23, it made a difference of 0.27% in the score. Cinebench 2024, on the other hand, and this is something I also write in the guide, Cinebench 2024, well, I can show you. Cinebench 2024, it made a difference of 7.7%. So here you'll see the score. This is CPU at stock, okay? And SOC and RAM at JDEC, and 23538. And you can see down here below, Cinebench 2024, 1310. So if I then go down to CPU still at stock, but RAM fully configured, it's at 23603. So I've gone up by 400 points. Okay. On the other hand, Cinebench, it's gone up to 1411, which is over 100.
Yes.
And remember, the scale on this is 10 times higher than this.
That's right, yeah.
So 100 points for Cinebench 2024, that would be 1,000 points on Cinebench 2023
I see.
to get the equivalent amount. And so yeah, it's a big deal, right? To use the right tool for the job, because otherwise you're looking for disappointment. The other thing, when you're benchmarking, especially after you've booted, for the first time, you run a benchmark and it's disappointing. You know, ooh, what have I done? I need going. Maybe I've forgotten something in the bath. No. Basically, what happens is that when you're running a benchmark for the first time, it has to mark the data in the cache as dirty and then bring in the data from the RAM. That takes a long time. So when you run the benchmark for a second time, it's already got the data in the cache. And that's when you're getting reproducible results. So you run the benchmark first time, just get the data into the cache, then run the benchmark a second time, because then you get reproducible results. And what I care about is I don't care about the score. I'm trying to get a reproducible result. Like if I go from one BIOS to the next, is my CPU getting more performance, or at least not losing performance? Or over time, if I run the benchmark today, what has my CPU degraded? And the only way I can do that is if I can reproduce the results. So when you run the benchmark the first time, ignore that score, run it the second time, and that way you'll have reproducible, because otherwise it's just random what score you're going to get. Yeah. And of course, for my RAM, to test the configuration of my RAM, I use Pi Prime, because I found that it's like Cinebench for RAM. Again, when you're running benchmarks, you don't run benchmarks to compare them to other people. You run benchmarks to compare them to yourself. Has something that I have done changed
I like
my
that
performance?
analogy.
If it hasn't, then you go back and you say, well, is it putting more load on my system? Okay, so it's putting more load. So that's causing more heat, and that's causing me not to get better performance. Maybe I might want to get some better cooling. The Ryzen is very, very sensitive to cooling. The better you can cool it, the better off you'll be. There's a rule of thumb for Ryzen. If you can get your temperature down by 10 degrees, like say you went from 70 to 60 degrees, then per core, your clock speed will go up, unless there's an artificial limit of like 5.225 gigahertz, for instance. But your clock speed will go up by about 100 megahertz. And I actually demonstrated this with someone who's in your Discord, AlphaDoc, because I helped one of his friends who's in Pakistan, and he was using air cooler to cool his 9800X3D. And so I went through configuring it with him. And because he couldn't run at 1.2, it just got too hot for his cooling. So I said, all right, fair enough, that's not a problem. We'll do it 1.15. And 1.15 with his cooling, the maximum he could get out of it with Cinebench R23 was 5.3 gigahertz. 5.325 crashed. And he was around about 80 degrees. With mine, 1.15, I could run mine 1.15 at 5.4, but because I had better cooling, it was at 69 degrees. And I was running, I could, like I say, at 1.15, you know, when I limit it to 1.15, I could get 5.4 gigahertz because I was running 10 degrees lower than he was running his. He's running at just about 80. I'm running at just below 70. He can only get a maximum of 5.3 gigahertz without crashing. I could get a maximum of 5.4 gigahertz without crashing. So temperature makes a difference. Or on the other side of it, let's say, or to make it a bit clearer why this is happening, if I was running my 9800X3D at 5 gigahertz, and it was running at 60 degrees, let's say, and I was to say, all right, I'm going to, you know, turn down my cooling so that it's running at 70 degrees. To keep those 5 gigahertz, I would have to put in 4.5% more power. So the hotter it gets, the more power you need to keep your clock speed. And of course, that goes into a feedback loop. So if you're going for the maximum clock speeds, as you go up in temperature, the feedback loop will just fry your CPU. You know, if you didn't have any kind of limit in it. So yeah, cooling is very, 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 very important for running for configuring Ryzen or getting the most out of the 9800X3D. And you don't have to break the bank. I mean, like the Liquid Freezer 3 360, it has actually become a bit more expensive now because lots of people are buying it because it is recognizably the best. But you still can get it if you're in Europe, you can get it on the website, on Arctic's website, for under $100, the equivalent of $100, which can't really complain about that. So cooling is the alpha and omega of configuring or getting good results with any Ryzen.
Mm.
So if you're not willing to, or if you can't, for instance, or like yourself, you know, I just don't trust AIOs. Okay, fair enough. The guide also has something for you. Right? You don't have to have, you know, just 1.2 volts and that's it. No, you can go 1.15 volts. And let's see how far I can clock it and keep an eye on the temperatures. Because with Ryzen Master, and this is why I use Ryzen Master, not HW Info. And you see that? Can you see that on the
Nice
screen?
and cool. Yeah, 52 degrees. Lovely.
No, but it's a big honking dial that it says temperature, and you know, take a look at HW Info.
That's
Right?
true. Yeah.
See if you, yeah, it's like, let's do a microscope, and you know, and all the information is all buried, and it's like HW Info's own description. So SVI3, like, okay, fair enough. Here I see the effective clock. Okay, this is where most people get it wrong. They think, and you've got the likes of Captain Chucklefuck. You know who I mean by that.
Mm.
But they will all say this here, see maximum CPU speed. Oh, that's what my CPU. No, that's not what your CPU is running at. Okay, that is the maximum that you've set.
Yeah.
Okay, and you might, if you're using PBO and cover optimizer, you might get one core to actually get you to 5.4225.
Wow.
But that's about it. It's 2 cores, never going to happen. Whereas mine, the way I've got it set up, it's 5.475 is the maximum that I've set. That's the maximum clock speed I've set. You'll see here, peak core voltage, the maximum voltage I've set. Okay, so it's up to, right? And here, this here is what's called the effective clock. This is what your CPU is actually running at.
Yeah. See,
Right.
per core. Mm.
And like I can do a quick
Yeah, I think Ryzen Mastered, a lot of people don't use it. I think they should have a bit more faith in the software that the obviously the CPU manufacturer make for the CPU.
I don't know why. Well, put it this way. I think I do know. It's one thing you don't do is don't try to configure the RAM. And say these are the profiles, and you'll see here the RAM. I've left out all not because I really bad experiences trying to configure the CPU and configure the RAM. Simply because, well, one of the reasons is it will write the RAM configuration to a GISA, and it's written in hexadecimal. It's not written in decimal. And if you change stuff in the main BIOS, it won't get reflected in the necessarily get reflected in the GISA portion of it. So then you've got a conflict, and you'll load into a blue screen. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. With Ryzen, I found if you've overdone the configuration of the CPU, it will just black screen. It will just hang. If you've overdone the RAM configuration, it'll blue screen. So if you got a hang, look for the problem with the CPU. If you get a blue screen, it'll probably be the it'll probably be the RAM. And yeah, because something else just occurs to me, just as a tangent, but it might be interesting to some people. So, if you got, let's say you have, a hard drive or, an M.2 SSD, whatever, and you've got a feeling that maybe it's coming towards the end of its life. Very easy way to check that is you go into the event viewer, right? And then you go to Windows Apps, and then System, and then filter current log, and then all event ID, just type in 7, and then go OK. Now you should have 0. 7 means you've got a media error on your storage. And if you start seeing event ID 7s pop up, then you take a look at where they pop up and which media, which drive. And then change that drive as soon as possible. Back up that drive and change it, because that drive is on its last legs.
Wow.
It still may be working, and that is by far the easiest way to check if your storage is still healthy.
Yeah, you don't want to risk it, storage for the biscuit. Definitely not.
Well, especially not when when you got all your passwords saved on your, like it's a pain in the ass. If your boot drive disintegrates, and it's no problem in reinstalling Windows. It's just reconfiguring every bloody thing. It's like, and if you got a backup of it, restoring it 10 minutes, you're back up and running on new storage on your new drive.
Right.
But this is the easiest way by far to check to see if your drive is having any kind of errors or any kind of problems. So it's like I say, system log, and then filter current log, and then it's just put in event ID 7. Let's say 7 is media errors.
Yeah.
Right, so just as an aside. And let's say this is all that's, I mean, like you can, I'll show you how to go through creating a profile. Right, so if I go back here to, if I go to profile 2, for instance, and then reset profile, boom. So this is what you're going to be faced with. Okay, and I go through this in the step-by-step in the guide. So I'm just going to do this here in the video. So the first one is click on manual. Okay, then click in here, CCD 0 to expand that. Then there's a little red dot. Check that so it's green. Now what the little red dot does is if I change one of these values here, it'll be for all of them. And without that, if I change one of these when it's red, if I change one value, it'll only change that value. Right? So you want to put green dot in that. Then I like to say, right, let's start at 1.15. 1.15. Okay, and then what you do is you go down here to, this is not part of the configuration, this is part of the checking, right? You go here to memory control, and then you check to see, is the memory clock, fabric clock, configured to what I've set in the BIOS. Here it obviously isn't, right? So my RAM is running at 6200, so that means memory clock goes to 3100, and my fabric clock is running at 2067. That's 2/3 of 3100. So I put that to 20, exactly 2/3, so 2067.
Just so nobody knows, so the memory clock is halved.
Yeah.
Of the
Well,
speed.
the memory, well, it's called double data rate, right? RAM. DDR stands for double data rate. So the memory clock is the data rate of your RAM, okay, in megahertz. Right. And internally, it's got it doubles that. Right. So 6,000 megatransfers per second equals a data rate of 3,100 megahertz.
And
that's why you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So half. And the fabric clock, how would you get that?
Fabric clock, you change that in the BIOS. The one thing is though that if you go up to 6,000 on your RAM, 6,000 MTS on your RAM, you will automatically be running in what's called Gear 1, where the memory controller is running at the same clock speed as your RAM, as the data rate, right, of your RAM. If you go to 6200 like I have, you have to then go into BIOS and then change it to UCLK equals memclk, because otherwise, if you leave it on auto, it will default to my memory controller running at half the speed of my RAM or Gear 2. Now, and I'm not having a dig at Intel, right? Intel went first with the DDR5, and because of that, you can only run RAM in Gear 2. You cannot run Intel CPUs in Gear 1 with RAM, where the memory controller runs at the same clock speed as the as the data rate of the RAM. So that's why you have these higher clock speeds, RAM clock speeds. It's to make up for the fact that Intel cannot do Gear 1. Okay. So.
Okay. But just on that fabric clock, how did you get that number of the fabric clock?
You take the number of the data rate, and it's 2/3 of that. exactly 2/3.
Okay.
So if I was to have 6400 MTS, the fabric clock would be 2133, for instance.
But
And
quick,
you can also do a ×3 multiplier to add up to your MTS, to your mega transfer. So I've got 6200 I've set, so a third of 6200 is 2067. If it was 6400 I was running in gear 1, then or even if I'm not running gear 1, then the fabric clock would be 2133.
okay. So someone who's,
And
yeah,
you're not going to get beyond 2200 on the fabric clock. It's like 2167 is probably going to be the highest you're ever going to get it stable. I mean, there's going to be, I can get it 2200. Yeah, I configure to run 24/7. Okay,
mm,
I benchmark to configure. I do not configure to benchmark. If somebody wants to be a world-class overclocker, blah 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 blah, go somewhere else. Not my deal, not my bag. I don't get enjoyment out of it.
yeah, that's just
Apart from that, I can't afford it.
that's just to get the score, call it a day,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
yeah, that's not a 24/7. Um, so touching on this, so when someone does look at this guide, would we be running at JDEC, which is the stock speeds, or would you advise someone to run at the Expo speeds while they're doing the tune?
No, I always say to people when they contact me, I'll say to them, right, 'cause I don't know what you've done with your system. So what I want you to do is I want you to do a clear CMOS, go into the BIOS and load Expo or XMP, right? Simply because what's the point, depending on what the motherboard's like, all the rest of it, what's the point in configuring the CPU perfectly with the RAM at JDEC and then you load XMP or Expo and it blue screens, it crashes. Pretty dumb move. So I say to people, right, that's all I want you to do. And then I go through this procedure here. And they go, oh, that's so easy. I'm like, yep. You know. And then at the end of this guide here, I describe how to do it in the BIOS. Everybody's BIOS is different. But essentially what you're looking for is the thing.
Got to,
I always forget what it's called because I'm used to doing this now with muscle memory. So I literally am
it's all here step by step.
yeah. And like I say, a lot of it is like when unit hardware unboxed and stuff like that. And it's like I say, I like to give I like to have a narrative where I've got a beginning. So this here is a beginning, and it's obviously a beginning, and then a middle, you know, which would be this part here,
So if,
and then have an end, which is this part here, right? And then go through it step by step with Ryzen Master, and then when I get to the bottom here, I say, okay, now you'll want to put it in your BIOS, and that's described in this portion here. Okay, and it's really incredibly easy. As you go into BIOS, and you'll see something called CPU ratio apply mode. Now, I would not advise anyone to configure to chicken clock, i.e., when you're trying to find out how far it will go, to do that in the BIOS. It's too easy to type in the wrong number and to really screw yourself up. Okay, so I strongly advise you using Ryzen Master method, Ryzen Master method, to check and clock, and then and apart from that, if you want to do it in the BIOS, every single bloody change you want to make to you really want to, like, shut down your system, go into the BIOS, let's add 25 megahertz of clock speed, and let's boot back in again to Windows because I hit myself. You know, like, no, that's it's meant to be fun. It's not meant to be work, right?
This is why we use Ryzen Master. Yeah.
And that's why you use Ryzen Master, because you can just change it on the fly, and you can experiment, you know, with the CPU. Okay, you're getting too hot. Let's take the voltage down a notch. Okay, so it's just CPU ratio apply mode, and then change it to per CCX. Some BIOSes it's per CCD, and then you type in the highest clock speed that you got when you were checking clocking with Ryzen Master, and then CPU core voltage. You do whatever kept your CPU like within reasonable temperatures, so 1.15, 1.175, 1.165, whatever. Okay, every system is different. I can't say to you, oh, this is how you do it, because your cooling is different. Where you live is different. You might live in the Arctic, or you might live in Alaska. Bloody hell, you don't need a bloody cooler. Just cooler? What's that? I live in Alaska, mate. All right, fair enough. And you'll get better scores than me. That's the other thing. I have to, because of my back, I've had 2 spine operations. I've got spinal arthritis. I have to keep my room temperature pretty warm. So my room temperature is like 28 to 30 degrees. So if you look in there and you'll see this here at the top. Oh yeah, and core voltage, CPU core voltage. Like, you apply that. That's it. That's you configured here. 3 bloody lines. How to configure your Ryzen in the BIOS.
Entering
None
your
of this.
configuration, BIOS looks for CPU ratio apply mode. New box will open. You type in the highest clock speed to achieve 50 or 5025. So it's a starting point. Next, look for CPU core voltage and change that whatever voltage kept under 85 degrees. Why do we say 85 degrees?
85 degrees is where the structure of the X3D chip, because X3D is a separate chip. You got the 9800 X3D consists of 2 chips. Right, you've got your cache chip, and then you've got your CPU chip. And the cache chip is more sensitive to temperature than the actual CPU chip. So rule of thumb, if you got you ignore that, oh, you can go up to 95 degrees. No, you can't. You keep it to a maximum of 85 degrees, below 85 degrees. Preferably you want to be below 80 degrees, because you'll get to a point where to get the next 25 megahertz, you'll have to put in so much voltage that your temps will just go brr, you know, they go 810 watt hog on you, brr, and so 80 degrees for me is where I say that's where I want to keep my maximum under Cinebench R23. But everybody's different. You want to live dangerously, live your life vicariously. You go ahead. So that's why I say under 85 degrees.
Keep it under 85 and no maximum of 1.2 volts.
Yeah. Now 1.2 volts, again, this is not me saying it. This is TSMC. Right? TSMC has said very plainly the maximum voltage for the Info P node, which is what's used to make Ryzen, is 1.2 volts. And I think TSMC should know what the hell they're talking about. They created the node. So, and again, I can see that going up to 1.2 volts, getting the clock speeds, to jump up in 25 megahertz, a lot easier than after 1.2 volts. Because after 1.2, I have to put in a lot more voltage to get the next 25 megahertz than it did the last 25 before 1.2 volts, 1.2 volts. But the other thing that just occurred to me that might be, yeah, well, if we go back up the top here again, this is why I put in the, you can see here, this is running Cinebench, and it's 5.482 all core. As you can see, 73.7, and my clock speed here. This is my get voltage. This is my set voltage. So my get voltage is 1.85. Now, I had run Cinebench to get this score. I had run Cinebench for 10 minutes.
High score.
Right? Which, it's for the temperature that, I've got in my room, that's not bad, and now if I was a YouTuber who had the room temperature that the YouTubers normally have, or like they've got like 19 to 20 degrees. Well, yeah, subtract between 8 and 10 degrees off that 7300. I'd be running at like maybe 60, 63, 64 degrees.
Yeah.
Okay, which would mean my power would be a lot less. The power that's consumed would be a lot less for that clock speed. But I'd probably be able to run this at 5.5 Cinebench all core. Right? This is why when somebody reads my guide, they will probably have a lower ambient temperature than me, unless they live like Alpha Dog in Saudi Arabia, or his friend in Pakistan, which, okay, it's going to be hot, I can't compete with that. But funny story with Alpha Doc. I helped him configure his 9800X3D, and then he was saying, "Oh, it's it's crashing and all the rest of it." And I'm looking, I couldn't see, and I said, "Hang on, your temperature is quite a lot higher." He said, "Oh yeah, when we were configuring it, we had the air conditioning on."
Wow.
It was over an hour I was with him, racking my brain. What could have happened? What was going wrong? And yeah, it was that just a difference in temperature.
Saudi
For
Arabia is
Intel,
definitely not cool there. You need aircon on all the time.
But the thing was that when you come from Intel, you don't realize how dependent a CPU can be with regards to temperature. And it literally is with Ryzen, the less the temperature, the better results you're going to get.
Yeah.
Now, the way I test it is the first run I do for the score. So I don't have any monitoring software open at all. Right? So I just want to see, right, what's the score? Because this is what I want to compare to future me, right? Or compare it to past me, right?
Yeah.
Now, Ryzen Master could be different versions. Different versions could be putting more strain on the CPU, blah, 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 blah. So I don't run with any monitoring software, because this score here is important to know, am I getting better? Am I getting worse?
Apples to apples, yeah. No variables. Well, you're taking the variables out.
And then the second one, I run for effect. That is, I run 10 minutes again. So I do a second 10-minute run, and this result here was taken towards the end of the second 10-minute run that I did back to back with the first one.
You've got the heat saturation, seeing what the cooler is capable of, and seeing what the max withstand frequency is. Yeah, that's good.
And the other thing which I find incredibly amusing, and again, it's one of the reasons why I've got disdain for the YouTubers, is they seem to think, or they say, oh, Cinebench, not real world. Okay. But Blender, that's real world.
Mhm.
Blender and Cinebench do exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just that Maxon has made a benchmark that you can use to configure your CPU to work with their software that does the exact same thing as Blender. It's a rendering software. So if Cinebench is not real world, Blender is not real world per definition.
I think you've said in the past, Cinebench is sort of like the same as compiling shaders when you load up a game for the first time with like a new driver.
Not the same as. It's, I found that when I'm compiling shaders, it will use performance akin to, it'll put a load in akin to Cinebench R23. It'll put on a higher load than Cinebench 2024. So if you configure for Cinebench 2024, and you've got it to the bleeding edge where it's doing all cores Cinebench 2024, it could be that when you then run your game and you're compiling shaders, it'll crash. Whereas if you've configured it to run so that your bleeding edge is based on Cinebench R23, then you'll be able to compile shaders with no problem whatsoever. You won't get a crash. So it's the compiling shaders I found is a CPU load below that of Cinebench R23, but above that of Cinebench 2024, which is why, apart from the fact that Cinebench 2024 results very dependent on your RAM, right? Also because I don't know why Hardware Unboxed uses it as a benchmark for the CPU, okay? I mean, like, the guy's a cretin. The guy obviously has not done any work. Okay. Oh, it's a lot of work to switch out the CPUs and get the motherboards and yeah, but apart from that, all he's doing is he shoves it in, bungs on the power, puts on the cooler and bungs on the power, and then runs a suite of benchmarks, and then pontificates. And I don't know, Cinebench 2024 is dependent on your RAM, so it's bad enough when you're comparing Ryzen to Ryzen. But then you compare AMD to Intel, where you're using different RAM speeds, different timings, different bloody gear ratios. Gear 1 versus gear 2. And you expect a valid result with 2024? What kind of fucking cretin are you? I mean, seriously. And Cinebench R23, chuck it in. It will test your CPU. It's hardly affected by your RAM. Which do you think is the better benchmark if you're benchmarking a CPU?
That's right. You have to take the variables out. You have to. R23 is definitely the way to go, as you showcased before with the RAM speeds.
And this is why I also, because I'm aware of this demonizing and this whole not real world thing. This comes from Intel, and this was when Ryzen came out, and Ryzen was kicking Intel's ass because Intel was still on the 4 cores, and Ryzen with a first generation and second generation Zen Plus, they were giving you like 8 cores, 16 threads, and Intel was giving you like 4 cores, right? And of course, when you were running something like it was Cinebench R15, I think, at that time. Oh no, Cinebench R20. And then Intel did an advertising campaign, you know, like Intel's marketing at its finest, and especially with a guy called Ryan Shrout, who pretended to be a journalist, independent journalist at the time. He's one of the main ones that circulated that piece of propaganda. And he now works for Intel, because obviously he always did, but you know, at least he made it official. He put a ring on it, so to speak. And yeah, but they were determined to demonize Cinebench, because and this was a benchmark that Intel had been quoting for years, right? From Cinebench R15, Cinebench R20. They've been quoting it for bloody years. Until, of course, AMD was handing them their ass. And then it's not real world. And to this day now, you've still got people. We'll go. Oh well, you know, Cinebench. It's not real world. You know, like, really, not real world. Seriously, how'd you work that out? I mean, when I ask somebody, you know, why is it not real world? Well, it's synthetic. Okay, any workload that you're running just for yourself would be maybe considered synthetic. Then, you know, it's like anything you use to benchmark would be, if you're using a game, but you're only using a certain section of a game at a certain resolution, and you know, like all the rest of it, then that would be a synthetic, wouldn't it? Oh no, that would be real world. Really?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
You know, Cinebench will run the same test over and over and over and over with the same parameters. And the Cinebench R23 not affected by RAM speed as much, which is what you want, because you want to test the bloody CPU.
That's right.
Right. So we get back here to Ryzen Master again. Drag you back to my world. Just when you thought you were out, I'll pull you back in. So you got here 1.15. This is where we left off. Yeah. We checked here that the RAM speed is correct. Okay. So we went to here, memory control enabled, and this will tell me if, now normally when you install Ryzen Master, it will correctly put that in. It's because I've been using this profile to mess about with other stuff. Right. And then, because we got it 1.15, we'll go up here. We'll start off at 5 gigahertz. Okay. Now, the other thing that you want to do is, and I don't care how much of a silent freak you are, right? You have to give it some bloody cooling. And also, because of the way that the fans are attached to the control, you know, what controller you're attached to, you know, if you command a Pro from Corsair or something like that, you'll have a lag as to how fast your fans will spin up. And so what I've got is I've got my fans on something called fan control.
So,
as you can see, I've got a curve here for my AIO pump, which starts off low and will rise. And for my outside fans, a fan curve, which will slowly rise. But if I'm benchmarking, because I don't want to be caught out by a lag in temp. So you put on Cinebench and the temperatures spike up. So to avoid that, I just say, right, I'll max out the AIO pump, and max outside fans for me is 70%. Okay, so that's my fan spinning at 2000 RPM.
Yeah, this will
And
be
you'll see
like
here.
the highest load that we'll see for
Yeah.
the cooler.
Well,
Yeah.
like I said, I want to keep my stuff reproducible.
Mm.
Okay. Now, the way that you configure your fans, or the fan controller, it could change over time, especially if you configure it in the BIOS and you don't have a way of saving that, which I do in my BIOS. Then you're having to change it all the time, and it'll be different. This way here, I just say, right, max out your fans. I don't care about the sound, just max out your fans, right? You can dick around with your fans later on. I just want to see how, because, put it this way, we can be here until one of us dies. And I'm 66 years old. For me, that is a definite possibility. So let's try to make this as quick as possible. And then you can select dial down your cooling to your own audiophile shell-like ears. Your hearing. If you got bad hearing, well, sucks to be you, I guess. But my fancy, I've got Fantex T30s on the because the fans that originally came with the Arctic Liquid Freezer 360 weren't good, but now with the Pro version, which has replaced the old version, they've got, the only difference is they put better fans, so I wouldn't have to fork out 70 quid for 3 new fans.
Mm.
Anyway, this is what I do. This is my standard for testing, right? And like I say, it just keeps it reproducible.
Yeah. That's a good software to have for your fans and all-in-one radiator, your pump.
Yeah. So I've got my fans up, and as you can see, my temp will come. Well, I'll now go here to the last bit. So the last bit, when you put in the clock speed, just go to apply, and it will just do it. It might give you a message, right? Just ignore the message. As long as it's not asking you to reboot, you've done it correctly. Okay.
Mm.
So now I've changed the voltage, I've changed the clock speed. No reboot necessary. See how easy that is for chicken clocking?
Mm.
Okay. So then after that, you go to home, and then you load the benchmark of choice, the benchmark of kings. Cinebench. Oh yeah, by the way, Cinebench. What was the point for this?
I'm assuming you're using Benchmate, where it has all the built-in
That's
benchmarks.
that's what I was going to show you. So hang on, I'll just exit my game. Oh yeah, by the way, I've been playing a game in the background while we've been talking here. Right? Watch what happens when I quit the game.
Oh, everybody's going to sleep.
Yeah. Okay. So again, you see effective clock and real clock. And even though I had a game running in the background, it doesn't crash it, just well behaved.
The maximum frequency
Yeah.
now is going to be 5 gigahertz.
Yeah.
Okay, because we've set 5
So,
gigahertz. Okay.
yeah. So I'm going to show you Benchmate. I'll put that I'll put a link to Benchmate in the guide as well. And this is what Benchmate is essentially just a launcher for benchmarks. Okay. But when you download it, it also downloads the latest versions of those benchmarks.
Mm.
and actually configures them for use. Now, here I had it configured at normal +1, which is above normal priority,
Okay.
which I did for a certain reason, but I don't know. Usually what I'll do is I'll set it normal priority. If you download Cinebench from Guru or
Mm.
anywhere else, then it will come configured with a priority of below normal. Now, below normal means that when you're running the benchmark, everything else is allowed to interrupt it.
Okay.
Okay, so like your RGB software, your active wallpaper, all the rest of it, it'll screw with your results. So I will normally run the benchmark at normal because I don't really have much of anything running. Well, at the moment, yeah, that's why I did that because I had, like now I've got loads of stuff running in the background. I've got Discord. I'm talking to you,
Mhm.
so put it above normal, and that will kind of like give you you want to try to get as close to a normalized result as you can get.
Mm.
And you don't want to have crap that you're running in the background interfering with it while you're running it. You want to give Cinebench, and Cinebench doesn't really doesn't really run long enough to really cause you all that much problems. Right?
Mm.
10-minute run, never ever do a 10-minute run at higher priority. Always do a 10-minute run at normal priority at the highest. Okay.
Okay.
But for a single run, just to see what your CPU is capable of, then yeah, for sure, run it above normal priority. Because like I say, you want from run to run, you want to because you're configuring it differently. You want from run to run to see if the scores are going up or for some reason going down.
Mm.
Okay, and if stuff is interfering with it, never go above a priority of above normal. So some people say, oh well, like obviously then high or real time would be better. No, because you've got an all-core workload. If you give it a real-time priority, you're guaranteed to crash your system, right? Because stuff that needs to have CPU attention doesn't get it. Because you've got a lot of really important system stuff running in the background, which is always like clamoring for CPU attention. If you run Cinebench in real time, you run it for 10 minutes, you're guaranteed to crash.
Yeah.
Because those vital system calls can't be made. The CPU doesn't give it attention. So above normal is the highest you should ever go.
Okay.
Just for your own sanity's sake. So you've got that. So now what you should be doing is you have Ryzen Master and you put Ryzen Master here, and then you go and grab Cinebench, and we'll take Cinebench, and we'll put Cinebench, make it a bit smaller. Okay, so we'll put this over here, and we'll put this. Oh yeah, to grab Ryzen Master, you have to get it around about here to actually move it.
Oh, yep.
If you try and grab it here, nothing. Okay. And then we'll put Cinebench out of the way. Okay. So as long as you got select Cinebench out of the way, and you can see what's going on here. And usually I just want that because all I'm interested in is this, but for the sake of this video, we'll take this down. And so as you can see, I've set 1.15, sorry, 5.0, and I've set 1.15 as my maximum voltage. So let's start Cinebench multi-core. Now, because I've set it above normal priority, it's even interfering with Ryzen Master. This is why it looks like it looks like it's hung. It hasn't.
Okay.
You can see the temperature is like 65 degrees.
That's a very good cooler.
Yeah. And you'll see the score there, 21,546. Not great, right? Not a great score. But remember what I said? It has to mark it as dirty.
Yes, yeah, that is
And then
correct.
to fill up the cache. Now, usually what I find is when I run it a second time, like I'll do now, then the score goes up. But of course, it won't do it now because in Germany we say Vorführ effect, the demonstration effect. As soon as you want to demonstrate something, it will never do what you said
Here's the magic
it was going to
trick.
do. Yeah, and it'll never, like, oh, give me your watch and I'm going to do a magic trick. I'm going to make it disappear. And here's a hammer, bump, and you slap it with a hammer, and it. So in the second run, it didn't really go up all that much. But
We have the
saw the
baseline.
temperature.
So
Saw
adjust.
the temperature. So that tells me, okay, it's all right. So 63, 1.15. All right, let's see. Maybe again, if you're doing this at home, what you do is 50-25.
50-25. Okay.
Go up in 25. Now, the difference between Ryzen Master and configuring the BIOS is in the BIOS, you can only configure in jumps of 25 megahertz. In Ryzen Master, you can do it in jumps of 5 megahertz. So if you actually are wanting to configure your Ryzen for benchmarking, guess what? Don't use the BIOS. Use that because that 25 megahertz might crash you, where 5 megahertz plus doesn't crash you, and that extra 5 megahertz could be the difference between you being second or third or being the world record holder.
That's true.
Okay, so that's the one advantage that Ryzen Master has got over configuring the BIOS, that you can actually do this in jumps of 5 megahertz, whereas in the BIOS you can only do it in jumps of 25 megahertz. So then you run 2025. Now, yes, I realize this is like watching grass grow. Okay, but if you the one advantage is if you do it right the first time, it might take you a bit longer the first time, but then it's one and done. Or you can try and do it quick and dirty and just have it keep on crashing on you. And then eventually spend hours troubleshooting the bloody thing and then, oh, Ryzen is garbage. No, it's because you wanted to short circuit it. You listened to Buildzoid, or you listened to DeBauer, or you listened to, God forbid, Hardware Unboxed. And this is the way it is. I'm going to take their numbers. They've done all the work for me. There you go, bump, and you're screwed. Okay, because different RAM, different motherboard, different CPU, all play different GPU. It all plays a role, right? There is no one size fits all. your system will be unique to you. I mean, even though you had the same motherboard, same RAM, and you had my CPU that I sent to you, that I loaned to you. I'm still not expecting you to have the same results as me.
Yeah.
Because I'm just not similar. Yeah. And I know what that CPU that I sent you is capable of, but all the rest of it together, I mean, you were pretty close. I had what 19,139, and you're over 19,000, so pretty bloody close.
Yeah.
With that. So, like I said, and this is how easy it is with Ryzen Master. It's just, boom, go into the profile, increase it, leave it, and did that, because I'm an idiot. I didn't actually apply it. So 5025. Good that I looked at. 5025. Ka-ching. And then we'll apply it. I see applies. Doesn't moan, doesn't. Then we'll go back to home again. And what you want to keep an eye on is obviously temperature. That is the main one that you want to keep your eye on. And then just run Cinebench again.
And just chicken clock your way up. And if it crashes, what do we do if it crashes?
But if it crashes and we've still got plenty of room with the temperature, then increase the voltage. Remember this, we've still got all the distance between 1.15 and 1.2 to play with. And as long as your temperatures are like below 85, okay.
Got some questions, Michael, if you're ready to take them. If you're finished showing.
See, but as you can see, we were at 21,500 before. Now we're at 21,600. That's how much the 25 megahertz all-core made, and then you just keep on gradually chicken clocking it until you're done. Okay, so what's your question?
I've got some quite unique ones, and I got some simple ones. Which ones do you want to do first?
Up to you.
We'll start with the more sophisticated ones.
Okay.
So, if
You want me to put on that pen?
Yeah. We'll put the tinfoil hat on. Yeah. So, there's a few here. There's about 10 questions. So, if PBO and curve optimizer plus boost clock override doesn't come close to optimal, which yours is optimal, what would specific limitations or inefficiencies in AMD's boosting algorithm or silicon behavior are being exploited or bypassed in your configuration or strategy?
Well, I'm not going to throw AMD under the bus here, because AMD, when they are doing the PBO and they're doing the voltage to clock speed curve, right? And they're saying for X voltage at Y temperature, it should clock to X Z clock speed. Now, AMD is supplying CPUs that are going to be used in Alaska, not a problem. Saudi Arabia, problem. The heat. And the Amazon, humidity. Where I lived in Germany, I lived about 600 meters above sea level, and it was quite dry. It was a dry heat. So you got all that to consider. So they have to put in very loose and general parameters. What I'm doing is I'm taking my CPU, my motherboard, and all the rest of it, and I'm narrowing the parameters individually for me. And I can bypass then the voltage curve that AMD has put into the PBO. Now, the other advantage with doing it this way is you'll never crash.
Oh,
And what I
yes.
mean by that is if you run Curve Optimizer, you can get Curve Optimizer, it'll run it rock solid steady under Cinebench. Right, because you've jiggled the curve, the voltage and clock speed curve. So you've lowered the voltage so you can give yourself more clock speed under load, which is perfect. Problem is, when you're then watching some like YouTube video or doing Discord or playing a game, it'll crash because that voltage to clock speed curve, you bent it too far and you don't have enough voltage for the clock speed that it wants to achieve when it's under lighter load. Because under lighter load, it can clock higher than obviously under a heavy load.
Yeah.
So Curve Optimizer can really come back to bite you in the ass, right? And also trying to get this voltage under control is a bitch. I mean, like I say, I with my 9950X, I just it was the first time I'd actually seen PBO halfway working, right? So I thought, okay, let's give this a try. And to get it running the way I wanted it with PBO and Curve Opt, it was about 1,000 hours of experimentation with it.
So I'm going to mix in
But
something.
I was determined to do it because, like, you know, that's my autism thing. When I set my mind to something, I will sit down and I'll worry it. I'll keep at it until, yeah, if I think it's worth it. For the 7950X I had, it wasn't worth it. It just was not worth it. PBO just and Curve Optimizer just didn't work properly with it. Right? And by properly, I mean I want to have my voltage going no higher than 1.2, be it under a heavy load or a light load. And doing it this way, you know, like Tom, he called it Nagerology, and Yubi, who's also on the Discord, he coined the term Naga clocking. So, like, you know, for this, it can't crash. It's bloody simple, right? And yeah, it does fall short on a couple of things. Like with the 9950X, I would never be able to get the single core performance as high using the methods I've been showing you. But yeah, it's a small price to pay because, you know, what software is single is so heavily dependent on single, you know, that you and I would use. I'm sure other people they've got special, like, oh, got to have single core. But again, when you've got more than one core active, you know, so you can have 10 instances of a single core, but it's still more than one core. So you're not going to get that maximum clock speed, right? Anyway, so yeah, it's like this isn't ideal what I'm doing, but it's the best compromise that I found that ticks all the boxes for me.
Yeah.
It's stable at high load, it's stable at low load. I can really control the temperatures, right? Which is also important. I mean, I can set a maximum in PBO. I set the maximum when I was doing 9950X to 83 degrees. Right. So if you are doing PBO and you're determined to do PBO with the X3D, set it to 83 degrees. You know, or 85 as an absolute max. But you know, I don't like doing that. I'll tell it to throttle when it gets to 83 degrees. And for me, this is just KISS principle. Keep it simple and stupid. But I'm not having a dig at AMD, because AMD's got to try to do the best in a world market. It's let's say the difference between weather and climate. Weather's what you get, climate's where you are.
Yeah.
And AMD
Touch.
doesn't know that. I do, but AMD doesn't. I know where I live, so I can more finely configure my CPU, my system for my circumstances than AMD can, because AMD doesn't know me from a hole in the ground.
Yeah. So touching back on the PBO, so a lot of people would use the PBO and the curve optimizer with the plus 200, and that will give you theoretically the maximum of 5425. Now, my question is, running the PBO and the plus 200 with the volts going auto, like most people do, will the CPU degrade over time?
Oh yeah. If you go above 1.2 volts, you will degrade. There's two things that will degrade your CPU. One of them is electromigration, which is caused by heat, and that's literally with the electrons running along the metal pathways of the CPU. It's pushing atoms out of the way, right? Which then will cause more resistance, which will cause more heat, which will cause the electrons to push even more atoms out of the way, because the atoms with heat, they vibrate, and you get the point where you get metal pathways under a microscope that are actually short-circuiting transistors, because they're getting pushed through the silicon dioxide insulator, so to speak. And then the second way is by what's called oxide breakdown, and that's caused exclusively with too much voltage. Now, CPU manufacturer, fabs like Intel, and this is one of the reasons why Intel CPUs were failing, was they do put in a layer to try to protect the workings of it from voltage,
Mm-hmm.
and that's specified for a certain voltage level. So up to, like I say, for M4P, up to 1.2 volts won't damage that.
Mhm.
If you go above 1.2 volts, it's not specified for that. And the higher the voltage you go, the more damage you're going to cause. And there was one poor guy that I talked to. He had an ASRock board. ASRock has got his problems with AMD. Don't buy one. He's still got problems. And he had, well, did he have the? Can't remember. It wasn't. Was it Tai Chi? I honestly can't remember. It wasn't the lowest end ASRock board, but I don't think it was the highest end one either.
Is that the
But
only horror story you've sort of seen?
oh no, God no. But this one was especially horrific. Now he'd been running it basically at stock for 6 weeks. 6 weeks.
Stock voltage.
And I could, and I looked at it. It was with Cinebench 2024. I looked at the voltage, and up here under load, it was at 1.27 volts.
Oh, wow.
That is up here, right? And within 6 weeks, he's had it for 6 weeks. He had degraded to the stage where I could not even get it to run 5.225. It would run 5.2 a couple of times, and then if I tried 10-minute run, it would just crash. Right? So I had to literally go down to something like, it was 5.1. And I said to him, send it back. And because ASRock has got a bad, the ASRock motherboard killed his chip.
Mm.
because under a light load, he was almost at 1.4 volts.
Wow, terrible. But it's not just ASRock's fault. It's the auto volts that played the part as well.
Yeah,
If he
ASUS
would
is
have,
another one. ASUS is another one that likes it more power, more good. Yeah. So like in the Intel mold, if you go above 1.2 volts, it's TSMC that says it, not me. You are damaging your CPU, and the higher you go above 1.2 volts, the quicker you'll be damaging it.
yeah.
And it's not a case of, oh, it'll stop working. No, it'll degrade. And then you'll start getting stuttering in your games that you didn't have before. And I don't understand it. I haven't changed anything. Yeah, you have. You never properly configured the damn CPU. And guess what? It is now degraded. Well done. Live with it. And I know I know I sound like I'm being a bastard here, but you know what? So many people say, "Oh, like that's you know." I don't know what their objections are. I don't know why they object to this, because this is what extreme overclockers do. They set the voltage and they see how much clock speed they get out of it. It's nothing different. It's just that, oh well, you know, real men use the BIOS. Real men use PBO and curve optimizer. Okay, fair enough.
PBO and curve optimizer are a new thing. So now that we're fully unlocked with this CPU and the 9950X3D, which is a little bit different because of two CCDs, we should be going back to the old ways with, you know, adjusting volts accordingly, adding to the multiplier like you have been showing. You know, that also brings me into question, for the simple questions, if I have an 9800X3D, or if someone does, do they need a special motherboard and what software to follow this guide? Do they need
Nah,
anything specific, or?
no, no. The lowest end, as long as it's a motherboard that allows you to actually configure your Ryzen, because I think there's motherboards that are so locked down that you can't do anything with it. But as long as you are able to configure the Ryzen on the motherboard, you can use my guide. One thing you can't do is something like Scatterbencher, who only does, he only gets his results on high-end boards, right? That are able to do ECLK or async bus clock. So instead of if you increase the bus clock or the base clock of your CPU above 100 to say like 102, you will destroy an M.2 drive. At least you'll corrupt it if you're lucky. If you're unlucky, you'll destroy it. Okay, so there is something called ECLK, and what that does is it takes the rest of the system out of the but allows you to increase the base clock, you know, the multipliers based upon. If we are running at 5 gigahertz, it's 50 times the base clock. Okay, so 50 times normally 100. So if you can increase it to 102, it's 50 times 102, obviously. But that's only possible. You've only got those possibilities with high-end motherboards.
But
So
that,
his guides are only for those who have enough money. Mine is for the poor guy, right? You can't afford to get, you know, like the high-end motherboard, you know, the high-end CPU, the high-end cooling, you know. Well, I don't turn around and say, oh, well, it sucks to be you, doesn't it? Because I've been there. I did dumpster diving for the best part of 10 years in the 1980s to upgrade my so I know what it's like. to be in that position. And so I want people to get the most that they can out of the system. And this method that I've shown you, it helps you do it, which you won't be able to do if you do curve optimizer.
With
Again, curve optimizer is voltage. Your temps are going to go up to 95 degrees.
and you're
And
locked
if you
to
if you got
5425 as well.
if you got crappy cooling, okay, you can limit it to 83 degrees, but you're going to get craptastic performance. So, like, no matter how you slice and dice it, the way I've shown you, it allows you to finely tune it to get the most out of the situation you've got. That situation is the motherboard, CPU, cooling, RAM not so much, but those three are determinative for how much joy you're going to have from your game and all the rest of it. So,
The next question is I was just touching before the ELCK. That seems more for a locked CPU rather than unlocked, because we can change it by 25 increments. There's no real reason to have that.
Again, you've got the problem. I've done ECLK overclocking. That external clock, as opposed to BCLK, which is your base clock for everything.
Yeah.
And like I said, I run my system to run 24/7. Okay. That's just the way. That's just the way I roll.
Yeah.
That's my perversion, if you want. That's my secret pleasure. Other people, they turn their computers on, turn their computers off, and they just want to have it running as fast as hell when they're playing it. All right, whatever. You can. That's the nice thing about you can configure your system to your own wants and needs. And if you got enough money to buy yourself a stream of CPUs when you've degraded one to where you're getting done, take it out, shove in another one. Who the fuck? I'll just bung on eBay and get nothing back for it. But with mine, I started off, so I thought, okay, do an ECLK or I actually didn't want to overdo it. So I thought, okay, I'll go to 104. And that booted, but then it would quickly crash. Right? Now, it's not the heavy load that will crash you. It's not Cinebench will crash you. It's the light loads. Right? Because you're confusing the CPU. Because CPU, it's a light loads, voltage and clock speed. And then because ECLK is transparent to the system, it doesn't know that you're doing it. So it just wants to say it just wants to send you to 5 gigahertz. Because you've got ECLK and a 104 multiplier 5 gigahertz with 50 times 104. That's 5,000 and 5,200.
Yeah.
And under a light load, it hasn't got the voltage for that. And it goes, bye-bye. Whereas under a heavy load, with a voltage drop, the clock speed won't try to go as high anyway. Right? And it will be a lot more stable.
Yeah.
Because you'll have plenty of voltage for the clock speed that you're trying to achieve. And it'll still be reasonably within the parameters of the of what the CPU is expecting. So that didn't work. Then I tried, okay, let's try it 103. Again, crashed pretty quickly. Then 102, crashed pretty quickly. Then 101, that lasted for quite a few hours and then crashed. I generally, when I was gaming, And like you saw when I was running Space Engineer, it doesn't really hammer the CPU. It's a lightish kind of load. It's medium, I would say medium, a medium load. Crash. All right. So let's try it 100.5. That lasted quite a long time. It lasted like a couple of days. Crashed. And eventually I got it running 24/7 stable at 100.45. Right? So 0.45% increase. The juice is just not worth the bloody squeeze.
Yeah.
End of story. And you can only do it on high-end motherboard.
That's true as well. That's
Right.
what I don't like. It's an old school approach to something that's not needed, and you're paying for it as well.
And
So,
apart from that, if you try to do it with a bus clock, BCLK, I say, oh well, I don't have BCLK, I'll do it with BCLK. If you got an M.2 drive, if you go above, like 102, right? You put it to 102, you will corrupt your drive. Okay, you have to reinstall your operating system, blah blah blah. But there's a real chance of you actually destroying your drive completely. End of story. Unrecoverable. You've turned it into junk. It's e-waste. Okay.
yeah.
So you do not ever do BCLK and think it's the same thing. It isn't. No matter what your friend next door who's watched a bloody Buildzoid video, because, and this is one thing that pisses me off about Buildzoid, because Buildzoid will only use SATA drives. Because he knows of this problem. And he doesn't mention it when he talks about BCLK overclocking. And I've talked to him personally about it. I said, oh, well, people know that. Said, no, you got new people watching your videos all the time. And they see you doing BCLK overclocking, so they think it's okay for them, and all of a sudden, their operating system is bricked. Because they've got an M.2. Or not just bricked, but their M.2 isn't even seen anymore because it's destroyed.
Yeah.
And so you should be saying this warning every single freaking time you do a video on BCLK overclocking, to tell the people, if you got an M.2 drive, if you do BCLK overclocking, even by a minor amount, critical is like 102, but it could happen below that, right? Then don't come to me when you destroy your M.2. Okay, that's what you would have to say. If you want to do BCLK overclocking, make sure you've got a SATA drive, a SATA SSD.
Ties
They're
perfectly
okay.
into the next question. So will this configuration void my warranty or damage my CPU, even if I run an LLC? So load line calibration.
Nope. Simply because you're 100% within spec. It's actually at stock, you're actually running outside of spec, and you're running outside of the spec that TSMC set. Okay, it's not the spec that AMD. So you're running this at an even tighter spec than AMD is running it. Right. So you are in compliance with what do you call it, with TSMC. Now LLC is a funny one. LLC doesn't actually increase the amount of voltage. Okay, it's just that under load, it prevents the voltage from drooping.
Yeah.
Right. So you're raising the lower limit instead of raising the upper limit. Now, obviously, I can't go with my methodology. I can't go above 1.2, and I might just be, I'm so close to that next 25 megahertz. If only. And that's when you go to LLC, load line calibration. And what that will allow you to do is to bring up the lower level. Downside of that is, depending on how well LLC has been implemented, and by the way, ASRock boards already put you on a medium bloody LLC, which explains why you're at 1.27 volts. I was getting with Cinebench with this guy with the 9800X3D, because by default, ASRock, in their infinite stupidity, I'm not going to, with infinite stupidity, right? Put the LLC at medium instead of at the lowest, the most droop, right? Where the voltage drops the most under load. No, they've got it already on medium. That's where they start off, which pisses me.
I've never been one for ASRock boards.
I wish all the Darwin Awards I can think of upon sorry. But anyway.
Now with this guide, this isn't your first rodeo with helping people. How many 9800s X3Ds do you reckon you've sort of configured? And how many have you sort of seen that have been in the bad hands?
Anywhere between 50 and 100. And I'm lucky. Most of the people that come to me, they've just bought it new.
Yeah.
Right. And some are a bit disappointed with the performance they're getting. And again, depending on the motherboard. Like for instance, my I've got a Gigabyte. I've got the X670E Aorus Master. And the reason why I wanted that originally, but I wanted it for the connectivity because you know the amount of hard drives I've got. And it was way too expensive, so I got the board that you've got. But the thing is, when I boot up and I look in my BIOS, the CPU is already being is running at 1.212 volts. So it's not really all that badly behaved. Right? Whereas other BIOSes, I'll see like ASRock, ASUS, MSI, they'll be like 1.37, 1.4. You know, what the? You have got to be shitting me. And these companies you should be able to take them to court.
Yeah.
Because seriously, all these buggers give a damn about is, will it last for the warranty?
That's right.
And AMD is especially sneaky because AMD will give you a base clock and then a boost clock, and the boost clock is always up to. Okay. The base clock, as long as it doesn't go below, all core below the base clock. So you're running Cinebench all core, and it's still above the base clock. Oh, what are you complaining about? Yeah, but the performance sucks. Yeah, but it's still above the base clock. So go away.
It's up to.
Right. And these buggers, you only care about the warranty period, right? AMD for the Ryzen CPUs, they only give a shit about the warranty period. And after that, F you.
Yeah.
It's like stuck CPU, tough luck, go away, buy a new one.
Talking about
it's like it's the most cynical thing. In that regard, Intel was a lot more honest. Because Intel will say, okay, for 2 cores boost, you'll get this clock speed. For 4 cores, this clock speed. No. With AMD, it's just the base clock and then maybe up to boost clock. That's it. And for a single core, for one single core, right? like that's an asshole move on the part of AMD. And of course, the motherboard manufacturers, they want to have the glowing reviews, right? So they've got the incentive to overvolt the bloody thing.
Yeah.
Which is really stupid. They're still stuck in this Intel mentality of more power, more good. And no, that's not the way things work with Ryzen. Less power, better. Work more efficiently. Not harder.
I think you said before, I don't know if it was today or prior, but if you get your CPU 10 degrees lower, you can take it up that tier in frequency a little bit more.
10 degrees equals 100 megahertz. I said that at the beginning. 10 degrees, if you can get your CPU 10 degrees lower under the workload that you're using, then you'll be able to go 100 megahertz higher.
Piggyback on that question, because that was the good and a little bit of the ugly, but what about the bad? So how many damaged 9800s have you seen? Have you someone's come to you?
Yeah, that's really difficult to say, because
I've seen it firsthand with you.
Yeah, the problem, see, with the 9000 series, for the first time ever, EPYC, which made up the same chiplets, the EPYC CPUs are on a different process node from Ryzen. So, for the first time ever in Ryzen, you got a far broader spectrum of chips, which means that the median quality of the chip that you get, the Ryzen chip that you get with 9000, is going to be better than the median quality of the Ryzen chip you got with the 7000, because they were both in 5 nanometer, and EPYC always gets the best chips. They get from the center of the die, center of the wafer. Sorry, not center of die, center of the wafer. That's where the best chips are made, and then outside it gets progressively worse until the chips that are made from the outside of the wafer, they're going to have the least amount of quality. And it's very, very difficult to say. I've had some anomalous ones where I can clock them ridiculously, but it just doesn't increase the score, and it doesn't increase the temperature. The indicated clock speed is a lot higher, but it's not doing bugger all. It's weird. But yeah, I know a degraded chip when I see it. I do have certain expectations. So if I was to say go at 1.15 in the 5 gigahertz and it was at 19,000 instead of 21,000, something. How long have you had it? Oh, I've had it for like 3 months now. Yeah. You're not going to have a lot of joy with this.
Yeah, that has always struck me odd, where it does, even on graphics cards, you could have matching frequencies and matching, obviously the same silicon or same hardware, but the scores are different. Yeah.
I mean, it's not. You've always got to think of the silicon quality as a Gaussian curve, right, or a bell curve. Yeah, and most of them are going to be in the center, right? So some are going to be a bit above the center, some are going to be a bit below the center, but it'll be in that kind of like ballpark. And then it falls off, right? And all the time, and I must have dealt with over 1,000 people with Ryzen over the past 6 years, and I've only seen one one silicon lottery winner, and that was a 5600X.
Mhm.
And we got that clocking and the performance increasing to 4.875 gigahertz, all core. It was
Yeah,
amazing. That is a silicon. People who talk about silicon lottery winning chip, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Until you've seen one, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And just shut the fuck up.
I call it the golden goose. Very,
Yeah.
very like a unicorn tears.
Yeah,
Mm,
exactly. I've like let's say over 1,000 people that I've helped, I've only ever seen one chip
wow.
that qualified. But you'll always get kind of like there will be a certain spread, but I do recognize when somebody has got a chip that has been degraded,
Mm,
and then they'll say, right, see if you can get something done on warranty, you know, for the chip. And there's a couple of people who I can't remember. I think they actually wrote to AMD and they got a snooty reply. Said, right, I'll write this. You write this to them, right? I'll write it out. So I wrote it out in Discord. I said, write this to them. And the guy got back and he said, oh, they want to exchange the chip. They sent me a postage thing, to send the chip back. And he got a new. It wasn't a 9800X3D. It was, I can't remember what it was. A couple of years ago. But yeah, it's AMD's dirty little secret.
yeah.
And so far, they've gotten away with it. Intel didn't.
Mm,
Doesn't make AMD any better than Intel, right? Both of them screwed you. It's just AMD so far have gotten away with it.
yeah, it'd be very hard to get second-hand 9800s and um, obviously 13900Ks and
Oh no,
14100Ks.
I know,
It'd be
but
risky.
yeah, but hang on. So like a year or so ago, I think it was Tech Yes City made a video about 3600X's dying. And I'd written on AMD's forum in 2019 that if they don't get their act together with the voltage, they'd be facing class action lawsuits because they're overvolting the bloody thing. And like I said, this was after my own experimentation and after finding out what TSMC's recommendation was, or TSMC's the maximum voltage, which was in that case 1.3.
Mm,
1.3 volts for the 7/6 nanometer. And I mean, that's, AMD has gotten away with it. Intel didn't.
yeah.
And the 13th and 14th gen users who have now got useless motherboards, they're stuck with either 13th or 14th gen. But I think they can put 12th gen in there as well. So you can go really back down to 12th gen.
Mm,
But that's basically it. But you're essentially stuck.
yeah.
But no, let's say AMD has been lucky that they've gotten away with it. And after 3 years, don't care. Or if you've got a tray version of the CPU, you've only got 1 year warranty.
Oh, wow. Well, Michael, it's been a real pleasure having you and getting the Nago experience. But before we do go, I've got two
Yeah.
more questions.
Okay.
One is, can we expect a sort of in-depth, obviously, piece like you've done with 9800 regarding DDR5 sort of tuning? So like a more of like a memory tune. So the next step like an add-on to this?
There's basically no-brainer settings, and the no-brainer settings for DDR5 will basically get you as far as you're going to go, right? Cache latency, timing, that's useless. I mean, cache latency doesn't give you much. Okay. It was important for DDR4, not so much for DDR5. So cache latency 30 or 28, you don't sweat it. It's the other, it's TRCP, TRP, TRCD and TRP, and TRAS are the important ones. No longer cache latency. So that's for your top line primary timings. Okay, that's the timings you'll always see advertised. So good RAM, just look for 30, 36, 36, 76. Okay. You quite often get the likes of Kingston who will, oh, it's CL20. I saw a video by the Poets, I think his name is, and he's advertising Kingston, and it was dog shit RAM, but it had a good CL, right? So it was CL 30, I think it was, and then the rest of the times were absolute horrendous dog shit. You know, and I wrote a comment. I said, "You should be bloody ashamed of yourself, right? Recommending this, right? I mean, you're literally he's prostituting himself at that point.
Oh dear.
Okay? It's as simple. It's as simple as that. He's being a whore. He's being a hooker. He's no longer a techie, right? He's way beyond techie. You know, like on the downward scale.
Must be a trend. I'm seeing a few of them at the moment. Yeah.
And then you've got the other timings. TRW, that's a no-brainer. Put that to 48. 48 is the lowest it can go. But the one timing that will give you like 85% of all the performance gain you're ever going to get, 80 to 85%, is TREF, TREF, and then I. On ASUS motherboards, it's called refresh interval. And you just whack that to 65,535. Because the TREF is the interval between refreshes, that's your TRFC. And during a refresh, your system does nothing. No inputs, no outputs, no nothing, right? So your system is frozen in time and space. So normally what you want to try and do is get your TRFC as low as you can. Problem is that can come back and bite you in the ass. That everything may seem to be working okay, but when your memory state is like you're playing a game and the memory state is basically being written into the save game file, when you try to reload that, it's corrupted, and that's annoying, right? So so what TREFI does is it will increase the time between refreshes. So let's say you've got a TRFC, a refresh of 650, right? So that's a 650 clock ticks. And you've got a TREFI of 10,000. That's it. Clock ticks, 10,000 clocks between refreshes. So it's 650 clocks per refresh, then 10,000, then another refresh. Now, if you were to increase the TREFI, not touching anything with the TRFC, but just increase the TREFI from the timing refresh interval from 10,000 to 65,535, that is the same as dividing your TRFC by 6.5, which gets you to a TRFC of 100. Okay, this is T-Refi is your major force multiplier for your RAM. Once you've set that as high as you can, no, I've never seen RAM yet that won't do 65535, but I'm sure that exists. But that's usually because the people have got really horrible motherboards. But 50,000, whatever. But once you've set that, you've got 80% of all the benefit you're ever going to get out of your RAM.
Wow.
Just that one timing. And then you can take your TRAS usually down. Mine was at 76. I've got it now at 42. And then what you do is you do your TRAS plus your TRP, which is the row pre-charge, and you add those together, and that will give you your TRC, right? And so in my case, that would be 40 plus 36. Sorry, 42 plus 36, so 70 TRC of 78.
Yeah.
But again, the big one is your T-Refi. Once you've done that, that's you've got 80% of all the benefit you're ever going to get.
So buy a good kit of RAM, do slight adjustments, and you're good to go.
And the other thing is, don't cheap out on the PSU.
Don't cheap out on the PSU. Yeah.
Because like a cheap PSU, there was one guy who contacted me about the Ryzen, and the guy didn't have a lot of money, right? And he was having all kinds of problems, and like I can figure he's still having problems. And I said, I'm guarantee you it's your PSU. And I saw a PSU on sale. It was on Newegg. I saw a PSU on sale. And obviously, I don't have the money to. So I got in contact with a mate of mine, Tom, and I said, "Look, Tom, could you put half the money towards it? Because you're in the US, you need to order it. Can you put half the money? I'll pay you back, and then he'll pay us back." Guy hasn't got them, but I'll guarantee you it's his PSU that's fucking up his performance. He's getting crashes, CTDs, blue screens, the fucking lot. And so Tom said, "Yeah, not a problem. You got one in mind." So got my Supernova from EVJ, which was on sale. It was a platinum, and 10-year warranty. Obviously, you always look for the PSU that's got the 10-year warranty.
EVJ are very good.
Yeah, well, they used to be, but
Yeah.
they're not making them anymore. They're basically going out of business now. So anyway, bought that for him. I said, Tom, you talk to the guy, get his address. I don't want to know the guy's personal details. None of my business. All right, fair enough. So he ordered it, got it shipped to the guy's address. The guy put the PSU in, booted it up, and he said, "Oh, sorry, I got this yesterday. I've been playing. I've no crashes anymore. Nothing."
Wow. Just like that.
He was happy. He was happy as a pig in shit. That's what difference a good PSU makes compared to dog shit that I think he got his. It was a pre-built.
Pre-built comes with the case or something. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's the entire system, but they will cheap out, and they'll kind of like try to give you the bling, the mainline items.
Yeah.
Right. So they'll give you the CL30 RAM with the dog shit secondary timings, but CL30 because hey, magic. And they have to cut the corner some, and unfortunately, quite a few of them will do it with the PSU.
Yeah.
And the PSU is the central part of your computer, and a bad PSU not only can it crash your system, it can actually actively damage it. And if you've got a surge of electricity, a bad PSU will actually use your motherboard, your CPU, your graphic card as a fuse to protect itself.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. So you've got a scrap heap of a system, but your PSU will still be working fine.
Mm,
Right? I've seen this happen.
terrible. I've
You know,
heard a few cases, yeah, of the storms. They've knocked out the actual computer, yeah. Mm,
but it's like I say, when I'm confronted with someone and I can help, and I've got the wherewithal at that time to help, then yeah, I'll help them. And I mean, I was on a different Discord where I still am, and this is like about 5 years ago. And
mhm,
there was a refugee. He was a Syrian. He was living in Belgium, and he was part of the Discord. And he said, having to, you know, you know, communicate with my phone. Now, so why? I had a fire. My computer's, wrecked, and he didn't. Parents didn't have the money, for a new one, and so like we all got together, and believe it or not, there's one guy from Argentina that sent him a PSU. Which PSU, one of the heaviest things, you know.
mm.
And he said, "Ah, fuck it, I'll pay the postage for that." And I had a graphic card I could give him. And graphic card spare, and some other people had some storage. And like within a week, the only thing that he had to buy, he said you don't even need that, was the case, because that was just too heavy to send
Yeah.
internationally.
Mm.
But within a week, the guy was back up and running again.
Wow.
Not the greatest hardware in the world, but it worked.
Good deeds go far. Good to.
Yeah. No, I mean, everybody's got bits and pieces lying around,
Mm.
and if I can help somebody with it, then yeah, obviously, I'll do that. It's like with you, um, I've got the 7800X3D lying around. Now, yeah, I'll lend it to you,
Mm.
right? Because I mean, you're too proud to accept it as a gift, first of all, but I'm not enough of a bastard to charge you money, because I'd rather you
I
save that money
I wanted
towards
to
a
give you money.
9800X3D. What?
Mm. I wanted to give you
You know?
money, but you didn't send your PayPal, so.
No, because like it's like I don't hate you enough to take money off you.
Mm.
Yeah, I think I said something like that. I said, no, like, friends don't. I wouldn't be your friend if I took money off you.
Mm. It's good to help out. I believe in a good bag of karma. You do good things to get good things.
Yeah.
You, no point to be salty about it or an arsehole, because yeah, the probably most things I've given away would be CPU coolers. I reckon CPU coolers and cases. I've had that
Yeah.
many cases, and did a few power supplies given away as well. I can't remember. Been a
And and the thing is, that's because you and I are old school, right?
yeah.
Because we've had that kindness given to us, but
Mm.
it seems to be that kindness has been soured over. I know it always says, "Oh, I remember back in the day," but it really seems to be soured. It's like, you know, the "fuck you, I've got mine" mentality really. See, I never thought it would come into the techie space. I never thought that mentality would ever be able to come into the techie space, but yeah, it really is. It really has kind of like taken hold. And
Hey,
if you don't have a 5090, you got nothing. Fuck off. I mean, back in the day when I started off, I liked playing games, okay, but uh, I had a Hercules monochrome graphic card with a Hercules monochrome monitor, because they were great. They were the absolute dog's bollocks for text, right? That was it. And yeah, I was studying at the time, so I was playing games on that in grayscale with a CGA emulator, right?
Wow.
And I was enjoying the games because games are there to be enjoyed. And as long as you got some kind of picture on your bloody screen, if it's a good game, you'll enjoy it.
That's true. Yeah, you see what sort of headaches the new Blackworld cards bring and all that stuff.
Tetris, you can play that in dog shit graphics and enjoy it. Enjoy the game. It's like, but
Things.
now that I don't know that it's like evil has crept into the world, but it really seems the mentality change. People just not the same kind of community. I mean, that's one thing I like about your Discord is you've got that kind of community because people can come in. They don't you don't have not every word has to be put on the gold balance and all the rest of it. And you just enjoy yourself. I mean, as long as you're not going like overboard. Oh yeah, that's the other thing that I wanted to show you is see here with the wattage, right? Now if I load a game, so let's load Horizon Zero Dawn because that's got a benchmark. Or do you want Cyberpunk the benchmark?
No,
I don't care.
I do Horizons or whatever. Yeah. Either
But,
one. Up to you.
yeah. Okay. So no. Oh, why does Steam open? Did I close? Oh no, I didn't close Steam. So I had Steam open. Right. So Horizon Zero Dawn. It's just one of my standard benchmarks. I dick around with a graphic card. It's the what do you call it? These are my sanity check. If I'm configuring graphic card. And again, a standard benchmark, it will always do the same thing all the time.
Yeah. You want to know where you're going, that's for sure, So you have to keep it obviously the same. You can't have variables.
So I'm at 2560, 1440, and the graphics, ultimate quality. Okay, everything on ultra.
I can't see that part. All I can see is Ryzen Master and the wattage.
I know. Well,
57 watts, 61. Nice.
So now I'll run benchmark.
82 watts. Wow.
No, this is still loading the benchmark.
Oh, yep.
Right. Of course, loading is not the same as playing.
52 degrees.
And it's still loading. Oh, I think it's compiling shaders actually.
Really?
I think it was an update, and I don't think I've run this. It's the update. Well, cause I don't know because like it could be compiling shaders in the background, and it's just not telling me. But this is definitely taking a lot longer than it normally does to start running.
Yeah.
and it's not crashed. So the only thing that really would explain this is if it's still, you know, come to splash screen, the earth, the path. There you go. It's now running the benchmark. And then you can see the wattage there, 42 watts.
Mm. Right.
Now I can run this benchmark on the CPU, right? Because you see the clock speed, the maximum clock speed, it's only going up to 4.4.
Yeah, it's right.
So I could reduce this to 1 volt running 4.6 gigahertz, and I'd be running this benchmark at 17 watts. I know that because I've done it.
Oh, yep.
Right? And this is the effect. This is the difference between, and you see the effective clock is what you're seeing in the green bars, but it says here maximum CPU is 5.025, which obviously it's not. I'm not running at 5.025, am I?
Yeah. What? Yeah. No clock is locked like that as well. Because I see some people, they put it on Riva tuner and it's just hard locked to, 5 gigahertz, 5.2, whatever it's
Yeah,
the number.
no, it's not hard. It's not hard locked. It's just showing you the maximum it could go to.
Yeah.
Right?
But people
So
think that.
if you, yeah, and people think that is the maximum it's actually running at.
Yeah. All right, Michael. Well, that leads us to our last question. Where can people contact you, and how can they find the Reddit post? The Reddit post I put in the description. But you're happy to.
I've put Michael Nager at Discord. You know, just give me a quick quick buzz, and send a friend request, and I'll accept it, and I'll send you back a message. Typically, it's a wavy with "What's up," and go from there.
Can they?
If I don't know how to fix it, I might know somebody who does. One guy, he wrote in a comment on the guide here on Intel. Okay, give me a call on Discord. I didn't know how to fix it, but Vicentino does, and Vicentino helped the guy out. Yeah, that's what techies do. It's because we all have our little niche that we enjoy. Some people it's RAM, some people it's Ryzen CPU, some Intel, some people Intel CPU, some people it's NVIDIA graphic cards, some people it's AMD graphic cards.
That's true.
Like I say, we've all got a little niche that we like and that appeal to us. And some people like Alucard, he likes doing his like his graphic design and all the rest of it. I've got no talent for that. I admire the guy for that. You do the YouTube stuff. I mean, I've got a face made for radio and a voice made for print. So I've cut out the middle one. I just go to print. Because I guarantee a lot of people will say, "Oh, can't really understand that guy's," because got a Scottish accent. And for some people, it's difficult for them to understand that, even though I'm speaking. Yeah, but you're not speaking English the way you're saying the words. And especially if the subject matter isn't familiar to you, then something like accent can play a big role. And you don't have that problem. And well, I wouldn't say I was ugly, but when I was born, the doctor picked me up by the ankles and slapped my mother across the cheeks.
Oh, Jesus.
So I think there's a Geneva Convention against me being on YouTube and showing my face.
Oh, wow.
I'm sure there's a Geneva Convention against it. It's like when I was a kid, when I cried, I was so ugly. The tears ran up my forehead to avoid my face. I'm not joking. My mother was out with me in the pram, and God, that's ugly. Oh yeah, and oh look, his nose is running. My mom said, "Yeah, I think it's trying to get away from his face." I would if I was the nose, but it's So like I say, YouTube not so much, you know.
Well,
And with my voice, it's some people will have difficult understanding, but in print, and you know what? If you're dyslexic, I know somebody's going to bring that up, dyslexic, but you can do text to speech.
true.
Okay, and I don't think I put all that many grammatical or spelling errors in it. So you can run that. You can run that in text to speech, and you'll get the info.
Mm-hmm.
Win-win. You know. So, like I say, I've always had a talent for writing. I enjoy writing. Whether I've got a talent for it or not, that I mean that's up to somebody like yourself or your wife who reads it. But yeah, you know, I stick to what I'm good at, or what I feel I'm good at.
Yeah.
Why should I spoil that by trying to show my face on YouTube and having International War Crimes Tribunal coming after me? You know, it's like, no.
Wow. All right, Mr. Nager, we'll leave it there then, and
Yeah,
I'll be in contact with you
yeah.
and get it underway. And
How long?
thanks for the time.
How long? Oof, we've been talking for over 3 hours now.
She's going to be a long one. Yes, she is. Mm-hmm.
So have fun cutting this thing. I'll be interested to see what you make of it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it'll be
Let's
good.
say you've got full editorial, etc., etc., etc. Because you know, obviously there's stuff that I think would be important that you should have left, but it's up to you. I've got from this point on, I've got no more. So this is what you get, warts and all. So
I think we
I
covered
think you might
everything.
get. I
Because the only
think
question.
about out of
Hmm.
3.5 hours, you might be lucky and get about 5 minutes of useful footage. So good luck to you, mate.
Very good. Now we'll keep it raw. Yeah, I think you did talk about Duranaut in your
Oh no,
specs.
I haven't. Yeah, I haven't mentioned that yet. With Euronaut, this is really important. I mean, this is really important. I've tried loads of different thermal pastes of KPX, Cryonaut Extreme from Thermal Grizzly, MX4, MX6 from Arctic, NTH1 and NTH2 from Noctua, and all of them are reasonably good. I mean, like the best one that I used was the Cryonaut Extreme. And so Duranock came out from Thermal Grizzly. And I thought, yeah, you know what? I'll give it a try. So got it. Oh yeah, by the way, when you get Duranock, first thing you do, boil up a cup of hot water, right? Boiling hot water. Throw the tube of Duranock into it for about 10 minutes. So it makes it a lot easier to spread. And so I applied the Duranock, put the cooler back on again. So it's the same day, same ambient temp, same everything, right?
Mm.
And kicks off the computer. You could have knocked me over with a bloody feather. 3.5 degrees off my idle temp.
Wow,
Uh,
that's unheard
uh,
of.
that is the first time I've ever had a what the fuck moment with thermal paste. I
Mm.
am not kidding. Right? 3.5 off idle. That is, oh. And then it was clocking higher. I was getting better results, and the maximum temp was down by about 4.5 degrees.
Mm.
I never experienced that before. I'm a complete utter total fanboy of Duranaut. Yeah, I can wholeheartedly, and especially if you're like yourself, just doing air cooling, you really want to have every advantage. With one guy, he had an air cooler. It was quite a good one as well. I think it was the Thermaltake ones. What was it? Forgotten the name, but it's one of the better ones.
Mm.
But configured it, and I don't get the Dura or not. It would take a couple of degrees off it. He
Yeah.
got back to me. I said, I'm running Cinebench. 6 degrees lower. 6 degrees. I said, you're joking. I said, the temperature must be down. He said, no. Temperature in the room, same temperature.
What we want.
I was not expecting that. You know, like seriously, I was not expecting that.
Mm.
But I don't know what kind of crappy thermal paste he was using, because he didn't know either. It was his mate that had done it for him, right? But that 6 degrees is a universe of difference.
Mm.
for
When in
your
doubt,
performance.
we get the Duranaut out.
Yeah.
All right, Mr.
Yeah, pretty
Michael.
much.
That shall do it.
Right. Right,
Yeah.
well, take care of yourself.
All right. Thank you,
Yeah.
sir. Bro.